It's 4 o'clock. It's time to get this thing going. All right, everybody. We're like racing toward the end of day 4, but we are saving the best for last on day 4. It's been an awesome day with just stacked speakers. So I haven't done this yet. Round of applause for Chris for bringing all these awesome speakers. Right? Yeah. No small feat at all. So welcome to the 4 p.m. session, Getting to Product Market Fit. I haven't read this one in a while. So Wichita Startup Week is powered by Koch Industries, a time to realize and celebrate your entrepreneurial opportunities. This is 100% volunteer-led, which I've said it like 10 times and I still don't believe it. We're also in partnership with Techstars, a worldwide network to help entrepreneurs succeed. Before we get going on the last kind of presentation of the day, we definitely want to recognize all of our sponsors. Obviously, Koch Industries is our presenting sponsor. EY for our hackathon, Cox Business for the pitch competition that's going to be at 6 o'clock. Right after this, however, we have our trade show, which you see all these cool local startups happening. And definitely want you all to come and meet all these people who are doing really cool things in this community. One of the big things that we want to do is put a spotlight on all the local entrepreneurs. So please talk to each and every one of these cool businesses. The trade show is sponsored by Voltage and Emprise Bank, and then we've had gold sponsors running throughout the session. So this session is actually presented by Martin Pringle. They're a regional law firm with offices in Kansas City and Wichita and other places as well. But now I want to introduce you to Maria. Maria Flynn is Managing Director of Techstars. She's an entrepreneur with repeated success in industries at the intersection of technology and healthcare. She invests and works closely with entrepreneurs who change the world. That's really cool. Let's give it up for Maria. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Can you hear me okay? Yep. Okay. So this is your brain. This is your brain on curiosity. And I wanted to start with that because finding product market fit is a lot more fun and a lot easier if you lean into that curiosity. And when I think about some of the really hard things I did, whenever I would turn it into a game or a riddle or what can I learn about it, it always made it more fun. So a bit about me. I have an engineering brain, an engineer's brain, and what my husband would say is once an engineer, always an engineer. I haven't had a title that had engineer in it for 20 years. But when I got into entrepreneurship and business, I found myself still thinking like this, where I would take a problem, try to make an equation, think about assumptions, try to find data to support or refute those assumptions. And really, when I think about product market fit, a lot of how I found that I was doing this. I didn't have a simple formula to help me. And one of the some of the Techstars crew came out with this book in April, and I'm going to be using this as kind of a framework to think about product market fit. And really, it was a lot of the things I was doing, but I didn't know there's this book coming out to really talk me through it. And how I would think about it is, I would think I would have a barometer to let me know if was I going the right way, where there's sunny skies ahead, where there's storms ahead. And so I was always looking for data to support my barometer. And that's what I would like to lay the foundation today, is to really get our barometers going. So a bit about where I'm coming from in my entrepreneurial journey. 2 slides here. So we had a drug delivery technology platform, and our hypothesis is that drugs can be addressed through drug delivery technology. We applied it to oral and injectable drugs, mainly getting them to last longer, or if there was a taste problem, say for like a pediatric drug, we would solve those problems. It was a 12-year journey from start to exit, and this is our timeline. So we started in 2008. We pulled those patents out of University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, and our first hypothesis is if we could create enough proof of concept in a specific industry, say agrochemical, would Monsanto license the technology for that specific vertical? And that's how we spent the first couple years. So originally when the technology was invented, it was for long-acting depot for arthritis in the hand. So it was starting with the problem, the inventors found a solution, and where we went from that is we had this platform that could solve so many problems, and that was a really hard place to be in because we were the solution in search of the problems, and that takes a long time. So one of the key learnings from product market fit is really stay in the problem because there's maybe a better solution than the one that you are at right now. And if you really go into that diving with customers and customer discovery, they can help you learn, is the solution the best one, or is there a better one? Regardless, we had this solution, could do lots of things, and we started, about a month after I joined is when you started to see the cracks in the economy, and we knew our $500,000 angel round needed to last a long time. What we learned in that process is that we were a good grant story. So we raised $9 million through NIH, Department of Defense, USDA, that helped us prove parts of the technology, to scale it, to get our first clinical trials, really to answer a lot of the questions that the industry was wanting us to answer. We did a lot of partnering with about 30 different companies over this journey, and we operated very leanly in pretty shabby offices, the first ones, and really our clients liked that. They liked that we were using their money very frugally and really putting it into the technology. So we developed lots of patents, lots of technical know-how along this journey. We did focus, you'll see in 2013, so as soon as we had enough going on and enough funding coming in the pharma space, we did realize that we were stretching ourselves too thin and there was just too much to know in all these industries. But a lot of the assumptions in this path were, it was a licensing business model. Would they pay for it? What were the right customers? What were the best uses? And those are the things we figured out in our product market fit. We did sell to Adair Pharma Solutions April of 2020. So that's my story and what's this all about here today. So we're going to define product market fit. We're going to look at the difference between real and fake product market fit. We're going to walk through the methodology that the book helps us with of questioning your assumptions and finding data to help back up your assumptions. And then for those parts that you don't have data yet, what are some strategies that can help you go find the data? And then we're going to create a picture of how we evolve as the market changes, because finding product market fit is a never-ending process. You're always improving and you're always finding it. So why is it important? What is it and what is it not? So why is product market fit so important? So if we look at the top 20 reasons why startups fail, so no market need is at the top of the list. That's pretty direct line to product market fit. Ran out of cash. I would say the team didn't have enough time to get to product market fit. So as you start to look at the numbers, you realize this adds up to more than 100. So the 101 startups were asked to pick the top 3 reasons. And when I really think about product market fit, the ones that are circled are the ones, to me, mean we didn't focus on product market fit, we didn't get to product market fit. And ironically, that's right at 50%. So product market fit is half of the reasons why startups fail and why it's so critical for us to figure out this game. So to define it, we go to Wikipedia, the source of all truth. It's the degree to which product satisfies a strong market demand, and it's the first step in building a successful venture in which a company meets early adopters, gathers feedback, engages interest in its products. So we want to do this as early as possible, but we're really refining it. And even, companies that, making millions of dollars in revenue, they're still doing it. They're still finding out what is that fit that their customers need. So the questions I ask, are customers buying what you're selling? Are they buying it at a price that you need for a scalable business? Are they remaining your customers? And are they telling your friends? Those are some of the questions to be asking that are signaling if you have product market fit or you don't. So thinking back to the barometer, sunny skies, this person has arrived at their destination. So how do you know when you're there? When you've built a product that users want, you can back it up with numbers. You see people using the product and you witness word of mouth. So they're telling their friends, and you're enjoying profitable users, so the type of users that you want who are paying the price that you want. And that's super important that it's really a sustainable business that you're creating. I don't know if anybody of you have ever had it. You're driving down I-70, skies are sunny, you come over that hill and there's a tornado coming. It's happened to me twice. And you're supposed to get out and get in that ditch. But when you're there and there's water in the ditch, it's super, super hard to do, especially when you have dogs. But anyway, so fake product market fit, you're going down the road, you got problems ahead. And some of the common indicators of fake product market fit is magical thinking. So you're ignoring data, or you're not even looking at data. You're not measuring churn, the payback period for a customer. You lack strong technical talent or understanding of the problem. You believe that funding means product market fit. So that means somebody is believing in you, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you've achieved product market fit. And there's also, not so much here in our region, but raising too much money before you have something that people love. But it does happen, and it can cause you problems. So preventative measures, we talk a lot about metrics and picking honest KPIs and sticking with them. So you're not changing because you want to, but you're really looking at the things that really drive your business. You're tracking your churn carefully. Funding, so capping your burn until you have product market fit, and consider raising less money early so it's harder to do that magical thinking. And if you think about our story at Orbis, because of the way the world was at the end of 2008, we were super frugal, and really that culture that we had throughout the time really helped us concentrate on the important things. We would never get off track of hiring too much or spending money unwisely, because we had been born in that time period. And raising money for us was challenging, so but we made it through. On your team, so start with strong technical co-founders. Have a 3-month essential rule in hiring, which means after somebody joins, put 90 days on the calendar, and if you wake up, and if they would say, I'm turning in my resignation, would it be just so hard for you to get out of bed in the morning? That's when you have that small of a team, each person is so instrumental, and you really need them there to get where you're going. And then revenue generating employees need to pay for themselves, and we've seen that where if they're not making 3x what they're taking, you probably have the wrong salesperson, or you haven't achieved that sales market fit, and you really need to think through that. With our teams this summer, we talked a lot about testing the right product at the right time. So it is the MVP, but we think about the skateboard, and get the skateboard out there and learn something, and then go build the Honda. And I can say Honda because I drive a Honda. I love my Honda. But it's not the Tesla. And what we saw our teams wanting to do when they came into the program was really go for the Tesla, get the Tesla out there. And you lose so much learning along the way, where if you get your skateboard out there, you can learn a lot, make sure you're building the right thing. So really this framework, we thought a lot, and it was helpful for our teams. So going to the book. The first couple chapters, so step 1, whom are you selling? What are they buying? And why are they buying it? Seems pretty simple, but we found when people started to write it down, often their team members had different perceptions of the answers to these simple questions. So to give you an example from Orbis, we were selling to pharmaceutical and consumer product companies. They were buying innovation for existing products, life cycle management of their products, or they were buying a solution for a new product that had a problem. Either it tasted really bad or it didn't last long enough. They were buying it to increase their revenue and to protect their product franchise. The second one is the revenue formula. And there again, it seems pretty simple, but we really saw some challenges of writing it down. So for us at Orbis, we would license our technology on a product by product basis. So the number of products times proof of concept fees, plus upfront fees, plus milestone payments, plus royalties. That's how we got to our revenue. So really understanding where your revenue is coming, who it's coming from, is important. And this is probably the most important thing that really gets to the product market fit and is it real or is it not? This exercise that we did is each team member would take a different color of Post-it notes, and you take 10 minutes and you would write down what are your assumptions that back up what you're building. And so it'd be things going to Orbis. I believe that taste is a problem for kids. I believe people want to take things once a day versus 3 times a day. I believe, just what are all your beliefs? And then the second part of the exercise was to, how do you know? What kind of data do you have to back that up? And this is where a lot of people are just using their internal gut. And people ask, do you make decisions by internal gut or data? And I think it's both, because I think you don't get to that internal compass without having data to start with. But we're building new things, so you don't have all the data. So you really need both. And we'll talk a minute about that. So they would write down, how do they know this, and expose lots of holes of where they have these strong beliefs, but they don't really have anything concrete to back that up. Then we would go through a prioritization exercise of what are the important assumptions that you need to know. So you really drill down on important, and I don't have any data, and I better go figure out, because if I'm wrong there, then I probably have a problem. So ask yourself what drives your business, write down the assumptions, write down the data, and make a plan for the assumptions that you haven't validated yet. So we were peeling the onion here, and some of the teams came through pretty okay, like this onion. There's only a few peels. But then some teams, that onion was just kind of really lots of peelings. And then it's a process of putting it back together. And we have to do that through research. And this is where this is my first time going through the TechStars program. I joined 6 months ago. And so they had mentor teams that they would work together and put this back together. And for this, I thought of this slide. So primary and secondary research. The top 4 boxes are ones that I had used in the past. The bottom 2 boxes are ones I saw our teams using over the summer. So customer interviews, one-on-one feedback. Best way is to have some kind of a structured program where at the end you can say, I've talked to 50 customers on a scale of 1 to 10. This problem is a 9.5. So then it gives you something very concrete that you can use. I also like to have open-ended questions at the end where I can start to expose what are the questions I'm not asking that I should be asking. So super valuable. Focus groups, a bigger setting where you see his ideas bouncing off of that. And one of our mentors came in and talked about how he does product market research, very successful startup company that had been sold over the last couple of years. And, he goes in with the problem, really talking about the problem. You wait until later to do the solution. You do want to get input on what you're building and show them part of the solution. But what they found is, as they were talking about the problem, there was a problem over here that was a much bigger problem that they should go address. So they came in thinking this was their next stage of their product development. They came out with this gold nuggets that they should go work over here. So that's the magical things that you can do when you do this right. Published reports, so scientific journals, research organizations, and press. People will say primary research is much more valuable, but we could say New England Journal of Medicine says that 70% of kids have a problem swallowing due to taste. That's much more credible than Orbis saying, based on our 50 surveys. So I think the blend of these is really important. Competitor information, particularly if they're public, they put a lot of things out there that you can go borrow. So good companies will be doing this, so go, grab that too. So that seems all normal from my background. PickFu, has anybody used PickFu? So we bring in a lot of founders that just share their stories. And this is in one of the founder stories where somebody asked a question about, I'm dealing with this problem. How would you solve this? And she said, well, I would go use PickFu. And then everybody went. And it was super helpful to do A/B testing. And, if you have a tagline or you're changing your logo or your name of your company, just really to get feedback. And then also online, and from a marketing perspective, it used to be you put your billboard out there or your ad in the paper, and it was a one-way communication channel. And now you get lots of feedback, whether you want it or not, but you want it. You want to hear what they're saying. So whether it's a Facebook ad or Reddit, Q&A on Quora, your B2B, Trust Radius, G2 Crowd, those are some of the tools people started using to just go scrape market research, really, to help you on the product market fit quest. We talk about currency being signals for product market fit. So obviously, if the product's out there and they're paying for it, that's a signal. But what are the things that you can do before you're to that stage? So thinking about the skateboard getting to the Honda. So when you're a skateboard, it could be, signups, wait lists, letter of intent if it's, say, a B2B or a distribution partner. Like, when you get here to this stage, we will do this. So it's a bit of a handshake, and that's valuable. They're giving you something. Time. So if you're doing a survey for somebody and you can't, get 60 seconds, that's probably a signal. If they sit down, they want to talk for 30 minutes, you got to be careful that they're just not lonely. But that might be another signal of like how important this is to them. And introductions. So what are things that are valuable to people that they give you because they believe that you're doing something important? And this is the picture I liked from continuing to evolve as the market changes. So it's a bit of the skateboard to the Honda to the Tesla, but also the market's changing continually. So really evolving what you're bringing to the world based on those changes. Because great product development comes from having a culture of learning and validation. It's one of the 4 authors of the Levers book. And I like the continued thought process of that, and really the learning and validation, and how can you improve it? And have fun with it. That's what I prepared. What kind of questions do we have?
Let's give her a round of applause. Also add Cody Sims as a Wichita guy.
Oh, yeah.
So, questions? Who's first? Come on, here we go. Always Trevor.
Hi, Maria. You mentioned early on about the forcing the solution on the problem kind of thing. I had the privilege of working with a company up there in Kansas City that kind of had that same challenge going on. What do you do when you find, like, someone in your cohort, for example, is really focused on the solution and not the problem? How do you go about pivoting into finding that solution? Because in this particular case, I think that they're really trying to invent the problem to create this. They're trying to invent the solution to match the problem. Actually, I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but you know what I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. So what are they supposed to do?
So I think that there is a problem there. There's a true problem there. And nobody knows what I'm talking about except you and me. Yeah. And people are buying it. So that's a signal of it. I think a better place for me to start is with Orbis, because you can still get there. It elongates your time frame to get there. And really, we could solve 30 problems, which is the most important, which is the one that somebody's going to pay us for. And when we got to it took us a long time to get that first big contract, but then it was big once we got there. And the big motivator for that company to do that was the risk of losing our franchise. And that's not something I had predicted on that. And so I had lots of reasons why they would work with us. And I was always kind of experimenting, like, what are the most important ones? But that was the hook that finally got us across. And it's always hard to find somebody to go first with you. But going back to, so I never felt like that company wasn't addressing a problem. I felt like that was a clear problem. If
Problem that people are willing to pay is the question, right?
But they are buying it. I mean, they need to go figure out how to get more people to buy it. Thinking about other companies in the room, like really when that onion was peeled, and they really saw the problem well, kind of picking up the pieces of what's the right skateboard. And interesting, the company that I'm thinking about kind of went back to they went through this process of self-exploration, and where they ended wasn't too dissimilar to where they began. It looks a lot better, and I think they're more on it, but I think that they stayed with the problem. So really, I don't think any of these 10 companies were too far off, from my perspective, of getting outside of too honed on the solution. Orbis, I totally was.
We'll speak less critically later. I can actually say the name of the company.
Yeah.
Maria, so people who apply to Techstars generally have not completely found their product market fit. How do you pattern recognize those founders who you think have the ability to get there and those who you think how do you sort?
I think having an openness and willingness to be wrong. So, a lot of it is how moldable is this individual? But then also conviction that they're not going to be like, oh, well, this person said this and this person said that, because you're going to get the whiplash. So it's a really interesting road you have to walk of commitment to what you're building and flexibility to take in new information and adjust. So I think it's more of like who is self-aware enough. And I think that's a very individual, particularly at the stage that we start working with companies. It's more on the jockey that Dan was talking about earlier. And do they have the determination to find it, and are they moldable enough to get there?
Hi, so there is a quote that I like quite a bit: simple scales and complex fails. So you were talking earlier about going from the skateboard to the car. Now, if you are talking about, well, I want to eventually own that car company, do I start with actually selling that skateboard in order to buy that car company, such as PayPal with Tesla? Or are you talking more about, do I get that experience in how to make tires really well or drivetrains and then scale up to that Tesla?
What I'm talking about is getting something out as quickly and economically as possible and learning something so that you can go iterate and build the next one. So it's more of a time and resources to get to the learning. So how to go from customer interviews to something more usable. But I like your quote a lot. I think the simple applies to a lot of different things, and like how we used it a lot is simple to work with us. So to me, that can be applicable in a lot of different ways. I like that. So
to jump on we talked about this yesterday in the MVP workshop using a very similar diagram. What if a founder is passionate about eventually building a snowmobile and their entry is a snowboard to equivalent to your skateboard, but the market or the people they are immediately talking to are asking for wheels, but they understand that the first entry needs to be something sellable, and so they can begin that feedback loop of learning from the market. But is it wrong to push back on an MVP out there in the market that you have a passion for something that's slightly different that has an end goal, or should you just follow market response at all costs? I think part of it is how long can you stay alive for the world to change, and
So we had an alumni event last week, and there was a woman who built in, and she started built in Chicago, and now she's in 13 cities, and now she's everywhere. And so it's recruiting, but it's really marketing for companies, and that's how you're finding your talent. And so that was something new, and she was, 10 years ahead. So part of it was keep continuing making progress and waiting for the market to get there. So it's a bit of both. You have to stay true to what you want, but you can also, what you want to bring to the world, but you can also die not getting there.
You got to pay the bills in the meantime.
And so I got to work with Neil Patterson at Cerner, and he had such a big vision for what he wanted to bring to the world. And I remember standing there where whiteboarding, he said, "This is the third time I'm working on this." So timing is just so important, and part of the game is staying viable until some of these things come together.
And that's hard for passionate founders, I find personal experience from.
I guess kind of to piggyback off that because of the timing. So as you're trying to build something and you're, paying attention to the cues that are out there in the market, you mentioned several different types of ways that you can do the research and whatnot. From a timing perspective, though, are there some specific tactics that your team?
A lot of different people. So, part of it is we want to bring new things in the world. You are doing some prediction of what that is, but you're just also looking for the data to support you on that. And by getting that skateboard out there, that's the fastest way to really get data. So I don't know if I got you quite.
I guess I'm kind of thinking of I guess I'm kind of thinking of in that case where this is a thing, but maybe the market doesn't know that it needs it quite yet. And let's just say that you have the money, you can keep things going. You're making incremental enough success to where you can pay the bills and whatnot. Are you using those tools like Reddit and those sorts of things to start to see is the tide turning to where now I can really blow this up, or are there other tools that kind of help you, I guess, validate that you still are on the right direction and that your passion and your vision will eventually blow up?
Well, I think
not.
I think you can use all those forms to gather the information, and I think definitely.
I've got 5 backup questions. So.
Thanks, Maria. Maybe one step ahead, we've talked a lot about the really early MVP stage. We see a lot of businesses that get some little bit of traction. They've got some product built, they have some customers, but then they get, 10 different personas of customers in 10 different areas that all buy once. And so then they get stuck because they're kind of on something, but they really haven't found this product market fit, the most people that'll give them the most money the most often. This Techstars talked about hacks to break through that stage, where you've sold it 5 times to 5 groups, but none of them looked the same. And so you really aren't getting the repeatability that was in some of your initial conversation.
And I think really we do talk about honing in on the first buyer, and sometimes it isn't the largest market, but the ones that you can get to the fastest, and really what is the your cost benefit. So we do try to hone into really narrow starting points to make traction. We also talk a lot about distribution channels, and that we talk a lot about product and not enough about distribution. And are there already people that are touching those people that we can create an alliance with? So we spend a lot of energy there. But really what it's bringing back to me is the statement of, are you selling to the people that you want to? So it's more than just, your family and friends, but it's something that you can really have confidence that there's enough of these to go build your business on. So yeah, I think if there's 10, then there's, some educated guesses to go let's go hone in on these 3 and learn more, is how we would address that.
Yes, great presentation. I was told that you always have one customer, or there's one target audience that you need to hone in on. However, I'm thinking of like a B2B concept that's a service to businesses, but they're not the ones that are really going to be paying, it's the customers. So creating an MVP, I guess before you create that, would be, I saw the letter of intent thing from like the B2B side. I mean, it would be right to go after or to see whether those businesses would be even interested before pursuing anything further.
Right. And really going back to my Orbis experience, they had to pay something for it to be real. So the ones that would be like, oh, but this is Procter & Gamble, whatever. We can do this for free. And they never, every time when will I learn? And eventually we did stop and we say, we know that's not going to go. And there are other signals, like how many people did they bring to these calls? Did they bring like a robust somebody from each department? There were other signals that I could pick up on, like this is real. This is going to get to one of those bigger contracts versus we're wasting our time.
Really informative presentation. I had a question kind of about the assumptions and prioritization level of the framework. You touched on different levels of data and finding it to support the KPIs you bring to VCs and how you carry on with business. You also mentioned that you carried out some of your own analytical studies with I think you used 50 participants compared to however many, I think that's the example you used. For a company that maybe doesn't or isn't able to find that much statistical data in whatever market field they're in, is there a first few steps that that company would try to take to create those data analytics, to administer surveys? And if so, would you use any external help in doing so, maybe from advisors, or are there any external resources that might be good for that?
Yes. So, because really in the survey, I've got some pipeline entrepreneur friends in the room. That's one of the things that we learned there. And when I walked out in 2009, 30 was my number. You need to get to 30. Now, if you're a consumer product, you want a bigger number than, perhaps B2B. I think how meaningful they are. So, you could maybe get 5 or 10 really meaningful ones, and that could be a lot of great information. I think that's not something you outsource. I think if you want to try to outsource the, hey, can you go find me a report, and looking at the competitive data, more of the secondary research, I would look to offload that. But there again, you're telling that person to go look for something very specific, where there might be a question you don't know missed along the way. So I would try to train them to think broadly and bring other things. But there's just so much you learn from talking to your customer and doing that, that I think general wisdom is you don't outsource that, because you really need to be the first person finding product market fit.
So if you're a typical SaaS startup and you're always kind of working on that next raise, you have your runway, say that's the 100% mark. You need to have the revenue that supports the valuation to support that fundraise. At what point do you have any recommendation on when you need to start realizing the product market fit in order to get the revenue, in order to get the fundraise? I always thought I had more time. I didn't realize how early on you needed to start seeing those indicators, and what alarm bells at what point should alarm bells be going off that my runway is not sufficient because I haven't hit the product market fit to get the revenue to get the fundraise. Any thoughts around that?
Well, I think that's different for everybody, because some people get funding earlier than others of us. But what's in the beginning, if you have, and it takes us a while, I wouldn't say we had it until maybe year 6, So what's the story that you can develop that says that you're on the right path? And there's always some data points at each stage that you can get. And I think there's the more of them you have, more data points you have, the more credible you are. And the more, I think part of it is showing people that you have the willingness to like go figure this out, and that you can. And then so the early fundraise is really selling on that story, but then you want to try to get there as soon as possible.
One more question. Anyone else? Oh, there we go. Bookended with Trevor.
If there's a company in here that would like to participate, forget product market fit for a second, but would like to participate in Techstars,
Yes.
what would be the qualifications for that, and what are you looking for?
Great question. So we have 45 programs in 13 countries. I'm in Kansas City, so I'm very interested in the Midwest and developing our companies here. What we're looking for, we've got some themes in some of our programs. Some of them are corporate sponsored, but really at any point in time, grabbing the best 12 companies in a cohort that we feel like we can help grow. So we are an investor. We give a check. We have a 13-week accelerator program, and we are a network of people who want you to succeed. That goes from mentors to investors, corporate partners. So we are just looking for people who will go do big things, because that's the game. We got a fair number of unicorns in the system. We're now 15 years old. So yes, contact me, maria.flynn@techstars.com, or go to our website. There's always applications for different programs. Right now, some of them are virtual. A lot of our model before is go to a city for 13 weeks. But COVID changes things, and we have different models. We have a Techstars Anywhere that's a virtual program. So yeah, that's us.
All right, another round of applause. Hold it. Throw it in there.
This will be very quick, but just what is the cost to do that for you to be in your program?
So it is an equity exchange. So it's an investment, but really it's the program and the network that we're hopefully adding a lot of value to your company. So it's an equity for funding exchange.
All right, let's give a round of applause for Maria. Thank you so much. Some small batch coffee from Reverie Roasters. All right, well, at 5 o'clock, we have our trade show. So they're going to be coming right in the doors as soon as we release here. So stick around, talk to some founders, buy their stuff, spend money, give them money. Otherwise, just get to know them and see how we can support each other. At 6 o'clock, we will have the $5,000 Cox Communications pitch competition from 4 different companies pitching. So stick around for that, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.